Then there's a World Series where there's 7 games. And each and every baseball game's like a snowflake.
It's really quite a thrill. Not the money, but the thrill of being number 1 in baseball and to get that World Series ring.
With 33 years of play-by-play and 13 World Series broadcasts to his credit, Red Barber truly is the man of October and our host as we explore the highs and lows of the World Series.
2-0 pitch is swung on, drilled out toward right field, going way back. That's the ball game, a home run for Tommy Henrik. There's Henrik now between first and second. Bill Dick, the first base coach, almost jumped on his back and then realized that's a tender back and he better not. Henrik's coming in the third. He is trotting his home run home. Look at him grin, big as a slice of watermelon. When I started broadcasting the World Series, it was almost the exclusive property of the New York Yankees, the famed Bronx Bombers. My friends, I'm Red Barber. New York's meant a lot to me. It's been my baseball home. I spent 28 years back in the microphone at Old Ebbets Field in Brooklyn and then at Yankee Stadium. Here at New York's Museum of Broadcasting, I'd like to lead you through the evolution of baseball's showcase, the World Series, and show you up close some of the fall classics, highs and lows. This summer, the Chicago Cubs and the Detroit Tigers have created a lot of excitement. And I remember that they were in my first World Series in 1935. Bruce Godwin singled into left field, and as Cochran scored the winning run and the decisive run of the World Series, he grabbed his cap off the top of his head. I still see it. Of course, I wasn't in the booth the last time the Cubs won a World Series. That was back in 1980, and I was barely 8 months old. Baseball's changed in many ways over the years, but whether its experience is shared through newsreels, radio, television, or video recorders, one thing has remained constant. Each October, millions and millions of people turn their attention to the drama unfolding on a pair of baseball diamonds. And because the scrutiny is so great, the highs and the lows of grown men playing a boys' game are forever frozen in the minds of those millions. Good afternoon, baseball fans everywhere. This is Red Barber at Yankee Stadium as the Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Yankees get set for the opening game of the 1949 World Series.
Well, the World Series is the ultimate experience for a professional baseball player.
It's the greatest show on earth.
Essence of baseball.
The giant of all of them.
It means you're a winner.
You have a chance to capture the world.
You got a guy like an Ernie Banks that played for the Chicago Cubs all those years.
Great player, Hall of Famer. Never got to play in a World Series. I guarantee you that if you put Ernie Banks on your lie detector test and ask him, would you give back one of your MVP awards to a plate in a World Series, I promise you he would have, because that is the ultimate of everything you do. Sparky Anderson had more than his share of World Series highs in the 70s, when the Big Red Machine of Cincinnati won 2 world titles in 4 appearances. But from the late 20s through the mid-50s, no team dominated the October showcase like the New York Yankees. The Yanks were also involved in one of the all-time lows, as the Brooklyn Dodgers were just 1 strike away from winning the 3rd game of the 41 series.
Casey goes into the windup. In comes the pitch. Lindsay misses strike 3, but the ball gets away from Mickey Orr, and it's rolling back to the screen. And the Yankees are still alive.
The Yankees went on to score 4 runs in the inning and win both the game and the series. Unless you were at the game in those days, newsreels were the only way you got to see such greats as Ted Williams and Stan Musial, rivals in the 46 series between the Red Sox and the Cardinals. The last series broadcast exclusively on radio, and one in which Enos Slaughter made his famous mad dash to give the Cards the title.
Here's the pitch. There goes Slaughter. The ball is swung on there. The line drive going into left center field. It's in there for a base hit. And Slaughter charges around second, heads to third. Pesky goes out into short left to take the relay from Culberson. And here comes Enos Slaughter. He's going to try for home. Here comes the throw, and it is not in time. Slaughter scores.
For a broadcaster, radio was the supreme challenge. Radio allows you to be a complete artist. You describe the weather, the defense, the yell of the crowd. Your only restraints were those you put on yourself. I always tried to broadcast the ball, because the ball was where the action was. The ball and the score. I had a 3-minute egg timer in front of me at all times to remind me so nobody could ever accuse me of not giving the score often enough. Until the late 40s, radio was baseball's prime messenger, and that soon changed, of course, because of TV. But there are still those purists for whom radio is the next best thing to being there. Like a good book, radio supplies the baseball fan with words and allows them to create their own images. And nowhere does the imagination run more wild than in the World Series, where the highs and the lows are so amplified. And a good announcer can make you smell the grass, feel the breeze, see the shadows creeping across the infield.
Here's a swing and a high fly ball going deep to left. This may do it. Back to the wall goes Barry. It is over the back corner and the Pirates win. Ladies and gentlemen, Mazeroski has hit a 1-0 pitch over the left field fence at Ford Field to win the 1960 World Series for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
I believe it was a Mazeroski home run one year. I remember I was in wood shop, which was like the 5th or 6th period of the day, almost around 3 o'clock, which would have put the game almost in the 8th, 9th inning. The game having started around 1. This is 3:30 in the afternoon, and I remember having my little transistor radio with me so that I could be right on top of the World Series. Not that I had a favorite team or anything, but it was just the World Series.
Television brings the highs and lows of the World Series into the living room.
Deep in right center. Back for Gianfino. Back. He makes a one-handed catch against the bullpen. Oh, doctor.
In 1947, television came to the World Series. And quite frankly, it hasn't been the same since. As a broadcaster, television was less satisfying to me. Instead of being the complete artist, I was a servant of the monitor. Everything I said had to be synchronized with what was being shown on the screen. I felt like a monkey on a string. 1947 also marked the continuation of the famous Subway Series between the Yankees and the Brooklyn Dodgers, who would meet in 6 of the next 10 World Series. Now, most of the highs around this time were enjoyed by the Yankees, while Brooklyn fans grew accustomed to the lows of October. But in one of the most dramatic reversals in World Series history, Brooklyn fans, watching those flickering black and white images at home, experienced the ultimate high.
Yankee pitcher Bill Bevins was 1 out away from the first no-hitter in World Series history in 1947, when with 2 men on, Dodger pinch hitter Cookie Lavagetto became a part of baseball folklore.
2 men out, last of the 9th. The pitch swung on as a drive hit out toward the right field corner. Henrik is going back. He can't get it. It's off the wall for a base hit. Here comes the tying run, and here comes the winning run.
With 1 swing of the bat, Bevins lost both his no-hitter and the ball game, and the cathode ray captured it all.
I started reporting Bevins' no-hitter in the 6th inning, and after he lost it, I took a lot of heat from the media and from Yankee fans because they felt I had jinxed him. But throughout the years, Bevins has made it a point to thank me for doing what I did, because otherwise, he said, nobody would have known what was going on. Lavagetto's hit was about all Brooklyn fans had to cheer about in those days, suffering 7 straight losses in World Series appearances. But all that changed in 1955 against the Yankees, when a brash 23-year-old left-hander named Johnny Podres brought unrestrained joy to Dodgerland.
Walter Olson told me if there's a 7th game, you're the pitcher. Here we're playing the New York Yankees in the World Series, and I'm pitching the 7th game, and I'm probably like 8-5 underdog to win it. Nobody expected Dodgers, so actually there was no pressure on me pitching that ball game. And Yankee Stadium is a left-handed pitcher's park, and I just got lucky that day. We made some great plays in that ball game, and we got a couple of key base hits that take the lead, and as it turned out, that was quite a thrill.
The biggest play occurred in the 6th inning with Yogi Berra at the plate.
Alston just made a move to bring Sandy Ambrose into left field and brought Junior Gilliam back into play second because he started that game in left field. And all of a sudden, here comes a ball that Yogi hits down the left field line, and if Junior Gilliam was out there with the glove being on that side, he would have never caught the ball. But Ambrose raced over, Ambrose had a lot of speed, and he probably caught it 2 feet there. And when he threw the ball to Pee Wee already knew what Gil McDougal was, and he just wheeled and threw the ball back to first base and doubled him off for 2 outs. And that was a big play of the World Series.
The long-standing dream of Brooklyn fans was fulfilled just 3 innings later, as Padres held the Bronx Bombers at bay and gained a 2-0 seventh-game triumph.
I wasn't supposed to beat the Yankees, or the Dodgers weren't supposed to beat the Yankees because they never had anyway. But as it turned out, we win it. Maybe if we didn't win it, maybe the Dodgers would have still been looking for their first World Series win ever.
They waited a long time for it, finally made it. Johnny Padres, almost say, long live Padres. I can't say words to express just how good he was. He was great.
The World Series has a way of making heroes out of some players. There's been a lot of players that have become, in the eyes of probably great players, just off the World Series.
Case in point, Don Larson, New York Yankee pitcher, who in 1956 experienced the ultimate World Series high.
Mitchell waiting. Larson is ready. Gets the sign. Here comes the pitch. Strike 3. A no-hitter. A perfect game for Don Larson.
I remember how excited we were to think I'm running the World Series. And especially, I don't think, there's been some great pitchers. You think of the great pitchers, imagine of winning the World Series. And Don Larson was a good pitcher, but not when you think of some of the great ones that have been in it. And yet he was able to do something that's unbelievable.
But so too does the World Series focus on the lows, as L.A. Dodger Willie Davis discovered in 1966. Davis aired on a fly ball in the 5th inning, and 1 batter later, he did it again. To compound his errors, Davis then made still another.
Baseball, to me, is what the world is made up of. It's a winner and a loser every day. But baseball, you learn one thing. It can knock you down tonight, but tomorrow you can come back and fight again.
The highs and lows of the World Series enter the high-tech age.
Willie Wilson standing there, bases loaded. 1-2 pitch. Today, home video recorders enable fans to watch the World Series when and as they please. They can build a library, freeze the highs, and scan through the lows. The evolution of the broadcast industry has played a major role in the changes the game itself has undergone. Now television dictates when the World Series is played, and primetime hours have resulted in a lot more money for the players and for the teams. In many ways, the World Series has become a media event. Television, newspapers, and radio. And for the duration, every hit, error, or pitch that determines the outcome is replayed in slow motion and analyzed in front-page columns. And during these days, a tremendous audience stands in judgment. A mediocre second baseman can achieve cult status with clutch hits, and a superstar can be forever tarnished by failing to live up to expectations. It can be a cruel stage, or the most wonderful stage of all.
I guess the top of the mountain was 1980, and I don't think it'll ever change. I think it always will be the highest point, and I don't think I could ever do anything in my career, be it 500 home runs, another world championship, even an MVP in another World Series. I really don't think will ever top the feeling that I had in 1980.
Mike Schmidt had 2 home runs and hit .381 for the Phils in that series, and realized the wonderful high of being named MVP.
All the reporters are in the Philadelphia locker room or the Kansas City locker room. National TV is all set up in there, and they're looking all over for Mike Schmidt, who was the MVP of the World Series, to present my trophy to me in front of the world, which I had seen. I'd seen Reggie Jackson receive them. I'd seen Gene Tennis. I've seen all, just to name a couple. I've seen them all come on TV and receive these trophies. I'm going, geez, would that be ultimate, right? World Series MVP.
But just as in 1980, Schmidt breathed the rarefied air at the top of the mountain, in 1983, he walked through the valley of frustration.
I did for Betty. I went 1 for 20 in the World Series, and we got blown away by the Baltimore Orioles, who were a great team and a bunch of great players at the time, and probably a better team than the Phillies. And how did I feel after that? Well, for about an hour after that, I was depressed. And after that hour was up, I was just going totally back to life in general, loving it. Had forgotten the World Series, had learned some things from the World Series, and was simply able to stand there and say, they got the best of me. I tried as hard as I can try through the whole thing, and I have no regrets, and it was one of the great experiences of my life.
Mike Smith, my Lord, nobody has to tell me that Mike Smith's not one of the 5 best players in this game of baseball. Now, nobody has to tell me that. I can just look at his stats for the last 10 years, and he tells me. So what he does in 5, 6, 7 days is not going to change my feeling on Mike Smith. Mike Smith wouldn't even know what the word choke is. He wouldn't know what the word nerves are. It's just he's not hitting.
Well, when I think of Sparky Anderson, I think of polish. A manager with polish, I think, is as important as an MVP to a team being successful, because they have the ability to prevent those sour turning points from coming around. Sparky Anderson in his heyday was as good an influence on a ball club as any manager has ever been. Not only then, but let's think about the Detroit Tigers right now.
Anderson is riding high with the Tigers, but his legend was born with the Cincinnati Reds.
There was nobody in baseball at that time, or even I think maybe 25 years prior or 25 years after. I don't believe there'll ever be a club that can handle a club like the 76 Reds. Bob Housen, who was the president and general manager, said at the time, when it was over, this will be the last of the great teams ever built.
But it was 1 year prior he had his #1 thrill.
The highest high was the Boston World Series, the home run by Perez. That was the first one we ever won. Most satisfying to me because we finally won one.
When former Red Bernie Carbo gave the series with Boston its most dramatic touch, Anderson even enjoyed the low.
Bernie Carbo hitting that home run just set off cheers for everybody that was watching it. They thought it was over. I thought it was over. He had 2 strikes on. He looked so bad on the 2 previous pitches, and he hits a home run. I had to suffer a whole night to try to win our first World Series the next day, and I think suffering sometimes is what makes everything so great. I think when you have the highs all the time, you become cheated as a person. I think the lows are what make you. I said to one of my coaches, I said, I don't think I'll ever win a World Series. I said, I don't think it's destined for me to be on a World Series champion. And that would have never killed me. You know, some people think, oh my Lord, you've been in 4 and never won one. That wouldn't kill me even dead. I've been there 4 times and never won one. I walked to the top of the mountain 4 times, the way I look at it. 2 times I stayed on the mountain, 2 other times I rolled down. Who cares? I could have rolled down all 4 times. It wouldn't have disappointed me.
Putting it all in perspective, when the men of October returned.
So maybe for the 1980 World Series, and I've said this many times, and I think it was the greatest advice I ever had, and that was to go into the World Series and have a ball. This is potentially 7 days of your life that you'll never forget. 7 days of your professional life you'll obviously never forget, and especially if it's your first one like it was mine. Get involved with the media, get involved with the fans, get involved with everything, and newspaper articles, your teammates, laugh, joke, have fun, and just have a ball while you're playing in the World Series. You may have been serious as hell during the playoffs, but while you're in the World Series, just sit back, relax, and have as much fun as you can, and you'll perform.
The point is, folks, that simply playing in a World Series has to be the greatest high of all. To know that some 90 million people are watching you rub dirt on your hands, or that with a swing of your bat, you can set them to jumping around like cats on a hot tin roof. Well, that's some feeling. From the days when we played stickball in the street, or stood alone facing a barn wall, rubber ball in hand, we always envisioned it to be the 9th inning, the bases loaded, the 7th game of the World Series. And, of course, we always won. Maybe Dale Onset said it best when the Phillies finally beat Kansas City in the 1980 series. Unser, who had never played in the World Series until that year, smiled at a champagne-soaked observer and said, "You know, now I don't know what I want to do when I grow up." This is Red Barber, sitting in the catbird seat. A lot of people ask me where that expression came from. I didn't originate it. I picked it up in Cincinnati in a neighborhood stud poker game. I kept raising everybody, and I got everybody out except one fellow across the table. And then when the cards were turned up, he had aces wired back to back. And as he raked in the pot, he said, "Well, thank you for all those raises. From the start, I was sitting in the catbird seat." I figured since I paid for it, I might as well go ahead and use it.